Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. This video is a bit of a rant, but it's going to be very valuable. So just to give you a little background, I did a talk about becoming a 10K designer. As I went through the talk, I was talking about principles and values that I used that helped me go from 2K projects to 10K, 20K, 30K projects. In that, people were leaving comments saying, oh, he does value-based pricing. And then I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, wait, do I do value-based pricing? And it's a hard no. I do not do value-based pricing. I looked it up. I looked up the definition. I do not do value-based pricing. Let's look at the definition together so we can get on the same page. So value-based pricing is a strategy of setting prices primarily based on the consumer's perceived value of the product or service in question. Now, this is partly true, but really it's not, because that's not necessarily why I charge more for a project. There are other reasons why, and I'm going to break them down now in this video, which can help you charge more for your projects as well, especially when we get into this nuance. Value-based pricing is basically saying, because the consumer sees an iPhone worth $1,500, we're going to charge $1,500 for it. It's really only worth $500, but because there's such a high value in the market for it, we're adding additional dollars to the price so that it reflects what the consumer thinks about the product or service. But that's not necessarily true, because if a client comes to me and they want to build a website that is for something that's going to be worth $10 to $50 million for them, or $10 to $20 million for them, I don't necessarily charge 10% or like the value based on that project. I'm not charging 100K for a Squarespace website. That just isn't happening. At least right now, that's not happening. So it's not 100% value-based pricing. Value-based pricing is on a whole different kind of regiment of thinking. And the thinking is what's most important here. So I want to be so clear on how I actually do pricing, because this could be really helpful for you or a lot of people out there who are thinking about, how do I charge more for a project? Here are a few things that I keep in mind when I do my pricing, when I'm talking to a client, going through the process and doing pricing. First, and I did talk about this in my talk, but maybe I just need to explain it more. When you build a website, when you design a logo, when you do any type of design work, don't just focus on the design work. Focus on the problem you're solving. That's actually so important in this. You can go and say you're looking for an apartment to rent. Well, you can compare 75 apartments and write down pro and con lists and write down all the features that everyone has. Compare how many features are in one versus another. This one has 172 features. This one only has 112. So let's go with the one that has 172. But that's not how we do pricing. We don't do it by function. We do it by problem being solved. There's a pain point that the client has, the consumer has, whoever you're working with has. The better you are at knowing the problem and solving the problem, there's more value there. So when a client comes to me and they say that they want a designer to be able to do this custom work, they need this to go here, this to go there, I always ask, why? I want to know why. Why do you want this to happen? You get a sense of, oh, because this is what's happening in the business. This is what we need. I don't then try to dollar amount it and like say, oh, whoa, that's worth $750,000 for you in the next year, so I'm going to charge you $7,500. I don't do it that way. But I understand the value and the problem being solved, and I speak to the pain point, not the technical aspect. Let me explain. Client says, this is going to help us land a few new projects. This is going to help us do this. This is going to help us do that. I then speak to that. Yes, we're going to make sure the functionality you're looking for is perfect, dialed in exactly as you want it, so that you can do A, B, and C. You give the client a very clear pain point being solved. And that's where the confidence comes in. If you have confidence underlying the business problem you're solving, not just like, oh yeah, I could do it. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. But there's actually an underlying confidence between, I know you have this problem and we're going to be able to solve it. That's a whole different thing than getting stuck in the functionality. So again, that's not value-based pricing. I've said it a few times, but let's keep going. The next one is going to be number 2, timing. When you talk about this with a client, if a client comes to you, let's say, so I'm going to use an example without saying the name because it was a great project. I had a one-off project that came to me where a client needed an update to their site, and it was a decently small update, but it definitely was custom, but they needed it done by the next day. And their site had over 400,000 visitors on their site every single month. Why does that matter? This is kind of like I'm bleeding number 2 and number 3, but I'm going to focus on number 2 mainly. Number 2 is timing. They needed it done quickly, and so it interrupts my schedule. It pushes me to make sure it's done right the first time, that it's robust, that it all works, that when I take on that project, I'm talking about number 3 already, but I take on that liability. And so what's the value of that to me? To be rushed and put under the clock, and to make sure it works, and that if it's broken, if it launches and it's broken for a site that gets 400,000 visitors a month, which is about 13,000 visitors a day, like imagine a mall door not working. Like you cannot enter the mall. Like this is a big problem that needs to be solved. So there's a liability, number 3, we'll talk about it more in a moment, but there's also this timing issue. Oh, we need it fixed by tomorrow. There's a higher value on that for the client. It's not to subjugate the client to like almost like pin them in a corner and like force things on them, but you just realize for yourself, it's like, hey, I gotta make sure this works. If it doesn't work and I take on the responsibility, I might be working after hours. There's other things that come with a project, which really bleeds into number 3, liability. Now, when I say liability, I don't mean, I think this has been confused before, so I'll just try to clarify what it is. Liability is in the sense of this example that I'm sharing right now. The client comes to me and they say, we need this done by tomorrow. So timing is part of the pricing. But number 2, they have 400,000 people visiting their site. So the liability is if it's broken, that's a big deal for the company, versus they just launched their site yesterday and they have 4 visitors. The liability is a lot less. If they are a large brand, or they're about to go to the bank and get funding, or they're about to go to investors to possibly get more investment, and those investments or those banks or those transactions are going to be worth tens of millions of dollars, the liability is higher. Another client example is an agency that I manage anytime they need updates for their site. Even adding a new page, it's about $400 to $800 for them. Why? The liability. We need to make sure it works properly. The URL structure is proper from the beginning. The page is structured properly against their other pages. Every little detail needs to be accounted for. If there's a problem, that falls on me. That liability is just worth more because of the demand of the client, where they're at, what they do, what they need, what timing they need it in. So that's not value-based pricing. I'm not charging $400 to $800 for a simple page because the client is landing an $800,000 deal. The math does not add up at all. I'm doing it more so because of the liability I take on as an agency, as a company, when I do take that project on. These things are so valuable and important when you are talking to clients. If it's like, say you're doing like an email newsletter for a company and the company has 5 people on their list, or they have 500,000. You're gonna do the same process for both, but there's a higher liability and you want to do your best in that project. And so you wanna make sure your time is valued at the right space. Also, side note, I never do hourly pricing. I always do things based on results, which goes back to number 1, when you're solving a problem. Hey, if you want that, that's a results-driven action that I can do and make sure gets done for X number of dollars. I will make sure this happens for this price. It's not, it took me 10 minutes, or it took me 2 hours, or it took me 10 hours. None of that. It's just, I will get you the result you're looking for this price, and you won't have to worry about it. How's that sound? See, it's just so easy. I don't know. It's just fun. Okay. The 4th one here. So you solve business problems based on the timing of the client, if they need something fast or slow, all of that. Then the liability, which is like the risk and liability that you take on for the project to make sure it's robust, done right, all of that. And the 4th one, this is probably the closest to value-based pricing, but it is still not the same. We do consider the client and who they are as part of this whole conversation, right? So number 3 was the liability. That's very similar. But if this client is very front-facing or needs something done really well first time, that's a different process than someone who's just launched a website. I know we look at, like, say for example, Squarespace websites and almost see like they're all the same. They're all built on Squarespace, but they're really not. you see a lot of DIYer sites. It's obvious they did it themselves, which props to them. I like value this whole process of getting up and running quickly and not taking 2 years to launch a business or launch a website. But at the same time, it's very clear what is thoroughly done and what's done in partiality. So when it comes to pricing, doing larger projects, being very robust, you really got to consider, and this example is like one of the best that I've seen or heard, you really got to consider the experience as well and the thoroughness. For example, a Motel 6 versus a Hyatt. At the end of the day, they do the same exact thing. They offer you a bed, a TV, a bathroom, and a locked door. For the most part, a locked door. So why is the Hyatt 4 or 5 times higher in pricing per night than the Motel 6? Well, it's because of the experience and the level of attention to the details. The way the sheets are done, the way the bed is folded, the way the room is clean, the way like crumbs in the corner are cleaned up, the way the windows and the fixtures are kept, the way everything is handled, the way they talk to you, the way they greet you, the way all their furniture is just like kept well. Things get ruined, they replace them. A Motel 6, it could be ruined, it's still sitting there. That is the difference as well in this process. It's not just about the final design. That is important, obviously, because it's robust and all of that. But I'm just saying it's not about like the fact that you did 75 pages for the client versus 7. That's not what makes the price higher. What makes the price higher is the items I went through. The timing of it, the business problem you're solving, the liability, and finally, the way you work with the client of who they are and what they need. All of that really matters in this process. I built 1-page websites. Literally, that took me less than 90 minutes, maybe an hour, but it's very thorough, done right for $3K. And I've also done projects that were $15K and were just basically development. Everything else was dialed in already. I didn't have to recreate the wheel or anything. They already had their idea, the wireframes, everything mocked up. They just needed it developed on Squarespace. These types of projects come up because you start solving business problems, and the bigger problems you solve, the better, but it's not dependent on the value for the client. Yeah, so I've done a project for a client and they've raised over the last 2 to 3 years, $25 million. If I did value-based pricing at 1%, I would have made $250K from the client. I've had a great relationship with the client. I've made a lot of money, but I haven't made $250K. And not on just a website on Squarespace. So just really understanding that, just really getting a feel for that. It is not value-based pricing. I appreciate the comments, but it is not value-based pricing. Also, don't try to critique other people's work until you get to that point. Like, just be humble and don't have an ego. If somebody else is making more money, like, have the decency to just listen because they've learned things or figured things out that you haven't yet. So trying to like put them in a box or like classify something a certain way when you've never done it before isn't probably the best way to go about it. Like, really try to learn from people and see what they're saying in detail, because I really think this is a miss. The comments on value-based pricing is a hot miss. Like, I don't do value-based pricing. I never said value-based pricing. What I did say breaks down into these: solve business problems, the actual timing, the liability you take on, and that fourth one of like, who is the actual client you're working with? What do they need and what level do they need it solved? Sometimes clients just have more money and they're willing to spend more on it. And because they just want it solved right. They're like, I don't really care. I just need it solved right. I'm willing to spend 20K on it, 30K, whatever. Just get it done. I'm not stressing the specifics. So anyway, with all that, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, drop them below. If you got value from the video, hit the like button. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.